What's going on, guys? Junior's Fishing Company. Jig video today. So Northland Deep V 3/8 ounce metallic Chartreuse, I think this is. I've done another video on a jig with this color. I just love Northland jigs though. The Deep V jigs are phenomenal. And I haven't put any thread on here because I wanted to show you that these bait keepers on here, I actually took my wire cutters and I put them as flush as I could, and I cut off that bait keeper that comes up like this, like a barb, and then I filed it down as much. I mean, I didn't spend 15 minutes filing it down, but for some reason these bait keepers are like, you know, it's crazy strong, which is a good thing, but you're not gonna, with your hands, you're not gonna be able to lift up that second piece of metal and wiggle it off like I usually do. And so I just wanted to show you that it's gonna be uneven. Who cares? You're not gonna be able to tell. But you just gotta be careful when you're doing those first initial wraps, because right when I get right here, I'll just do a couple light wraps, and then I'll actually end up coming back over and making sure that it's not gonna mess with me too much. I'm using white 210 right now just because, and again, I filed this a little bit, so it shouldn't be like crazy. I just know mid-tie I'm gonna forget about it, and I'm gonna go to cinch down or tighten my thread, and it's gonna hit a sharp piece of metal and it's gonna snap off. So I just wanted to show you that. Super bright jig head, so I'm gonna do mostly black with a little bit of chartreuse in there. I've got some stacks of black deer hair, and one of them has just a little bit of chartreuse in it. This chartreuse shows up so much more when it's with that black hair, and so you got to be careful when you say a little. It's literally like a dozen hairs. But the tail of this, because this is a bigger jig, and it's even a pretty long shanked hook, I have some Arctic goat that I've blended black and chartreuse that I'm going to put in for the tail. And I want this to be potentially even a little bit longer than 5 inches, because it's going to fish small. So I've learned that with Arctic goat, you have to use a lot more than you think. It's kind of like marabou. It just completely sucks down in the water. So I'm going to make this, so if I put that there, and then I'll put maybe 2 stacks there, so I should be good. Just thinking out loud. I'm going to make this bait even just a little bit longer. I'm going to add some thread. Right here. So maybe 5 inches is about where my bait clip is, or material clip. So I'll just go a little bit past that. I'm going to even these out, and this is a lot of Arctic goat. So what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to make sure my thread is corded. And when I go to put this on, I don't want to put too much pressure. I'm going to just do light wraps, and then I'm going to hold it while I put that pressure on. And this is really going to want to roll. It's really going to want to roll. And so I have to just be really careful. You can even see my thread is splitting. So I'll push it back up there. I can even get another wrap on there. And I'm going to comb this out to help separate it, because this is such a thin material that it just knots up. And when you go to spin it, it doesn't want to pull. It just hangs onto each other. So you want to make sure you get a nice base down of thread pressure before you start moving. If you use just a little bit, it's fine. But this is a clump of Arctic goat. So again, I'm going to pinch, because even now it's going to want to roll a little bit. And it's going to slip down. It's slippery stuff too. I'm just going to get some crazy good thread pressures on there. This is 210, so it's pretty strong. And then I'm going to put a little bit of super glue for durability, but also just to keep it where I want. So the next stack I'm going to do is just all black, and it's really thin. These are going to get thicker as they go, but this is almost just to add, this almost isn't to add bulk to the body, it's almost just to add bulk to the tail. And my second and third stacks of hair are going to be really thick. So that's kind of how I'm just trying this out. Instead of 3 bigger stacks, I'm doing 1 super thin one. Again, just to add a little bit to the tail. Because this Arctic goat gets super small, super thin, but I can't add a huge clump of it because it's not going to stay on my hook. So you get a little bit of a dilemma. And I got to do this quick because I got that glue on there. And it just looks like it's super flared. It's not. It's just because I have that little thread bump from my Arctic goat. But that'll mat down anyway. Make sure that that gets all that it needs. So again, I can even pull this down and it'll, but this deer hair is really long, so when it gets wet, it'll flatten out. So I'll come up here, I'm going to put another stack, and then I'm going to put my flash. It's just going to be standard black holographic Flashabou. But in this stack of hair, there's just a little bit of Chartreuse. Get some of those smaller hairs out. I just kind of want to be careful with the length of this. And there's just one crazy long one. I'll probably go a little bit less, so I'm trimming off quite a bit. If you've watched the videos before, you know I've said it. Try not to use your super good primo tails on jigs like this, because you're gonna, if you have 6-inch hair, you're gonna trim 3 inches of it off, and that should almost be illegal. So if you have a 6-inch tail, congratulations. That's a good tail. So I'll get that spun around. Get my trusty comb. Push that all the way around, and you can see this Chartreuse is going to stand out a lot, but it's also going to get buried a little bit by my last bigger stack of black. So you add a little bit more, but not a ton. I just want it to be, just to show a little bit. And I'm going to get some really good pressure on there. And I left just a little bit of room, just a hair, right by this head. I don't want to build up any bulk right by the head, because that's where I'm going to put my last stack. So I'm going to put my tinsel right by where my second stack starts. So it's sitting right here. So I've got just standard black holographic Flashabou. I can get that tapered out. Got kind of a lot. And I'll go maybe a little bit into my Arctic goat, but not all the way down. Not that this is going to affect the way the goat swims. It really won't, because this is more limp even maybe than the goat. This Flashabou is super limp. So I'll get that around. Maybe 2 tight wraps. And I'm going to trim this. And then just flip it around and get it put on what will be the top of my bait. Spread it on my hook to make sure both sides get what they need. And it doesn't have to be perfect because this blends in a lot with that hair. But it's just going to really, it's just to add flash. I could add pink tinsel to this and it would completely change the way the bait looks. So I'm going to get a little glue on here and then we'll work on that head. Alright, so that glue's dry. I've got my last stack. This is from the base of the tail. So it's going to add a lot of flare, and that might just add a little bit more body to the bait. So I don't want this to go, I mean really you could put this full length, you can put it super crazy short. I usually kind of do it right in the middle just because it's usually the safest bet. I'll get it trimmed up. I've got quite a bit here. But this is a big jig and it's a big head. This is lead, this isn't tungsten. So it's a big jig head. So I'm going to put it right here. I'm going to go as far up in my head as I can. And I'll push that down. And I'm not going to put a ton of pressure on it. I want to get this pushed around first. Before I do anything else. Make sure that I get the top of what's going to be the top of my bait. The good thing about these jigs is if it's not perfect, that's okay. It's not going to, like a streamer or anything, it's not going to swim off. The only reason I'm using white thread is because I'm going to be able to trim it. I'll end up either putting black or red. So I'm going to work my way up towards my jig head. I'm going to kind of hold these down. I'm going to give a good cinch just to kind of lock that thread in. I'll work my way all the way up. Then I can get my razor blade and trim her up. Black and Chartreuse, 3/8 ounce lead head jig, Northland tackle deep V jig, metallic. I think Chartreuse. I can look it up online and I can put it in the description. But I love these big eyes. I love, and they're really high quality too. I don't know what brand eyes they use, but a longer bait. It's going to be a longer bait. It's going to be thinner because this is going to sink really fast too. It's going to be a thinner bait, but it's going to be longer, so it's going to swim more in the water as opposed to like a shorter, bulkier bait, which I'll make too. But I wanted this bait to be really long and thin. It's going to be really bright. This tail, even when all this black mats down, you're still going to be able to see this Chartreuse tail. You won't necessarily see, it's already kind of covered up, that Chartreuse in the bait. It'll get pushed and covered a little bit by all the black over it, but that Chartreuse tail is going to stick out more. Like and subscribe. Leave a comment below what you want to see, patterns. If you haven't seen a jig that you want me to tie on, let me know. I am a jig fiend. So if there's jigs out there I haven't seen or bought before, I'm happy to try them out. So Junior's Fishing Company, check out the page. See you on the next one.